Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. My name is Donovan Thompson with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
and today we are joined by
Jason Miller.
Jason Miller. And Jason, you have co-written a film, and what is that film?
It is called Echo Boomers. Just came out this past weekend.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is my first feature writing credit, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, of course. You went to UCA, correct? That's how we know each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all three of us are UCA alumni, so we've all went through the grad program at UCA.
It's alumnis.
Alumni, sorry. And I was on Facebook like a week or so ago, and I was like, oh my God, I need to ask Jason to be on here. I just thought it'd be a great time to bring someone in here and kind of get a good perspective on, you know, the indie film route, how you got to be working on the project, and then all the way to completion and to where we're at now.
Yeah.
So,
quick note for our listeners, just so we're clear, Jason is a perfect example of what we pretend to be.
right.
So just so you can kind of be making those notes as you go along, and so yeah.
Great. Yeah, absolutely.
Compare the two pictures.
So, Jason, tell me real quick, how did this whole process for Echo Boomers get started for you?
Well, this started with Seth, the director,
Mm-hmm.
and a friend of mine who pitched the idea to me. We had met at UCA. He was a student here for like 2 years before he transferred to Columbia College, Chicago. And we just kept in touch. We shot a couple of short films together. Shortly after we had wrapped one of our short films, he said, hey man, I have this script. Would you like to check it out? And he sent me like a 30-page, like a short film script. And it was just packed. This thing was basically a feature packed into 30 pages. And I told him that it's like, look, you know, this is great. You got some cool stuff here, but you should really expand this out into a feature. And then he was like, okay, well, would you want to write that with me? And I said, sure, yeah, we'll do that. And so that's kind of how it got started. From there, we wrote the script, and we wrote the first draft of the script relatively quickly. But then it was a process of trying to figure out, okay, what do we do with it now? He started shopping it around, trying to find somebody to finance it, and during that whole time, you know, we continue to go back and rewrite it and write it again and again
Right.
and again.
What's relatively quickly in terms?
I don't remember. I think we wrote the first draft in, you know, 2 or 3 months maybe.
Okay.
It was, something like that. It was a long time ago.
Gotcha.
So it's hard to remember.
And this was like what, 2015, 16 probably?
Let's see. I would say 2014.
Wow. Okay, 14.
Somewhere in there.
Okay, there we go. So he's shopping around, looking for people who are interested in it, basically.
Yeah, we didn't know what to expect. We had no idea. You know, we kind of first started with thinking like, oh, somebody would make this for like under $1 million. It would just be
Right.
some little thing like that. But then you have people come on, they read the script, they're like, ooh, we know people. We can get you money. We can get you like, $5-10 million to make this movie. And
Right.
we're kind of like, I don't think that you can do that.
You've
But
heard
sure.
that song and dance multiple times.
Right. I mean, like,
Right.
knock yourself out if you think you can do it. And I think that slowed us down for a while because we had a lot of different people, trying to pull some strings that.
Right. You're kind of waiting on them to come through, and then they don't for whatever reason.
Yeah. And the whole time I feel like, gosh, I'm not naive. I know that this is asking for a lot for a first feature. But I'm being kind of like, swept up in the excitement of it
Right.
all.
Of course.
So
It would be hard not to be, I'm sure.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
And there was a period there. I eventually started kind of trying to develop my own projects. I started developing a feature film here in Arkansas that I was
Right.
trying to get off the ground. You even worked on it
Right, yeah.
We shot for a few days and eventually had to shut down because we just couldn't pull in the financing
Right.
for that. But all the while, Seth is still out there hustling and trying to get it on the ground. What the magic ingredient was when we attached Michael Shannon to the project.
Right. Of course.
And I don't even know the full story of how that happened. You'd have to ask Seth, but I know that, as with any Seth story, I think it starts with him meeting somebody in a bar. And I think he somehow managed to meet Michael Shannon's manager.
Wow.
And they got to talking, and next thing you know, he likes the script, the manager likes the script, and he's attaching Michael to it. Once Michael's attached to this, to the film,
Right.
it's a go. It's just now it's a matter of finding the rest of the cast. 'Cause
Right.
Now
So he
they
came on
invested-
pretty early, very early. I mean, as
yeah,
early as
it's
you can.
probably about 3 years ago that they lined him up for it. But then it was like, now you have this expectation. Now the investor's like, okay, well, you're going to need to bring in some other talent to this.
Of course.
And that was a big process. That was, we had several different people we went through. Seth, I think, met everybody in Hollywood of that age range, and it was just scheduling and financing, just all these little details.
All the stuff that was not the fun stuff.
Yeah. Like we had Nick Robinson was interested in it for a little bit.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, are there any like big names that you had in any spots that fell through, or any like behind the scenes nuggets like that?
Yeah, Nick was probably the biggest person that was interested. Britt Robinson was attached at one point, and online people there's some I still see articles where people are confused and think that they're still attached to the film. They're not.
Right.
Too bad for them.
Right. Eventually, though, we landed Patrick.
I was going to ask, how did that happen?
I don't know.
I'm a big Schwarzenegger fan.
Yeah. It was really, it was cool too. It was, but yeah, I think Patrick, Patrick signing on was kind of the final piece of the puzzle to really, get the film going.
Get it moving.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because he's obviously not been in as much as his dad, but he has his dad's name, and that gives a lot of gravitas, and people are expecting a lot of his career.
Sure.
Like the people still look at him like he's gonna have a good career.
Yeah.
The early parts of it.
Yeah, no, I watched the film just last weekend. I thought he did a really good job.
He's
only
did.
been in a couple roles, or is this his first role, first main role?
I don't know. I don't think it's his. I mean, I guess it depends on how you
No, I
define.
think he's been in some.
He's been in other
films.
things. I don't know if he's been a lead.
Right.
Was he
yet.
in like the Ridge Runner or the Maze?
No, he
okay,
wasn't.
one of those. Okay,
I'm looking now here at his filmography. He's like some small bid roles here and there. Yeah.
sure.
Cool. So from landing Patrick, you have Michael Shannon on there now. So what was the process? Okay, now we have these actors. Where'd you go from there? Like, I know you getting up shoot dates, finding locations.
Yeah. So, like I said, Seth is handling most of the process of actually, getting that off the ground. But he calls me up and is like, hey, man, it's happening. It's finally happening.
Wow.
We have everything in place. Could you come on as a co-producer, as a creative producer? I was like, yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, of course.
It was, which is a big step for me. I left a full-time job to go do that, and it's all pretty scary. It's not exactly paying a great thing, but I'm looking at it as an opportunity.
It's an investment.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we left. I left Arkansas in July of 2019. We shot mostly in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
The movie takes place in Chicago, but
Right.
for budgetary reasons, they wanted
Tax
to shoot it in
breaks, all
Salt.
this
Tax
stuff,
breaks,
blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
union regulations.
Right.
It was all a big thing. So we shot in Salt Lake City, which was probably the most challenging part of the whole thing.
What
was
made it
trying to make
challenging?
Chicago, or to make Salt Lake City look like Chicago. It was almost impossible. I don't know if you've been to either city, but Salt
They're
Lake
very
City.
different. They're very
Yeah,
different.
I just got
I mean,
back from
one's
Chicago.
next to mountains.
Well,
Yeah.
we would have had more luck, honestly, if we had shot this movie in Little Rock. We would have more luck passing Little Rock off. As
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Chicago.
cool. Yeah, you
Salt
would
Lake
have.
The
City.
city. We're
It's
shooting
way
downtown.
more.
Easy.
We did a lot of. There was a lot of VFX taking out mountains and all that
Really?
kind of
Wow. I
stuff.
never would have noticed. That's awesome.
But also just like it's little things, because there were so many different locations that we needed that had a very Chicago kind of vibe. We wanted the apartments to feel like Chicago, the back alleys that they were in, and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
right.
None of that is in Salt Lake. It
Right.
was just ridiculous. And we did end up shooting some stuff. We ended up shooting like a few days in Chicago just to get those exteriors and stuff
Sure.
out of the way,
Right.
and then like 2 days in LA just because it was a last minute thing that we had to pick some stuff up, and it was easier to do in LA.
Right.
But mostly we were in Salt Lake City, and I was there for 2 months. We did a month of
2 months.
pre-production, and then a month of shooting.
Wow.
And
So that's quick.
What was
Seems
the-
like-
yeah, it was a pretty quick thing. Long time for me,
Sure.
the longest time that I've been away from my family and stuff like that. But But yeah, it was surprising how quickly we were able to, starting in July we had nothing, and then come August we're ready to roll on
Right.
Yeah.
almost everything.
How long was the shooting script you guys ended up with?
I think the shooting script was probably like 110 pages.
Okay.
Something like that. The movie ended up being 90 minutes. So,
Right.
Sure.
We crammed and trimmed and, did a lot with that.
What were you guys, if you can remember, what were you kind of clocking in on your day rate for page count there? Like 3 or 4 pages a day almost? Or?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. That's pretty
Good. It's good.
pretty,
Yeah.
pretty swift.
Now, I'm curious, as a writer, and I feel like your role, right, as like creative producer, I feel like that's kind of common for people that co-write or write a movie.
Yeah.
Just to be involved in that. What was your day to day like? Like, what was the routine like for your position? And like, were you just with Seth the whole time?
Pretty
kind of
much.
tackling different creative issues and
That's pretty much exactly what it
creative
was.
problem solving.
Yeah. I was right by his side the whole time. I'm credited as a producer, but I wasn't, the producers were in their other office,
right.
doing the numbers.
That
and all
side
that
of the
stuff.
producer side.
That
yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
what I was doing. I was with Seth. We were meeting with the DP, meeting with the production designer, meeting with everybody. Everything from shot listing, even to some casting. We still had some casting to do, and I went to the casting sessions with him there in Salt Lake and stuff like that. And I'd give him my notes, tell him what I thought, and he would take it or not
Sure.
take it or whatever. But that was pretty much what I was doing the whole time. I was just kind of by his side, just helping him kind of.
So even like during production, were you like just watching the footage
I'd be at
with
the
him,
monitors
Video Village and stuff?
yeah.
And
And I'd be at the monitors and we'd be watching a performance and something like that. And, I would just like lean over and whisper, like, maybe they need to do something
Sure.
like this. And he would go, I wouldn't talk to the actors or
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
like
Yeah, of
that.
course.
But I would, if he wanted a note, I would give it to him. So.
Sure.
That's awesome. That's a great, I feel like that seems kind of different from some of these other stories we hear about, not being as collaborative on some sets and people just want to be in their own lane and they want people to stay in their own lane. It sounds like there was since you guys are so friends for so long, there's some more collaboration there.
Yeah. Well, we both knew what we wanted the movie to be.
Right.
And I think that's why
Yeah.
he wanted me there, was because, I was always half of that equation trying to come up with.
You had the
story.
vision for it, like
Yeah.
you did. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Just because I'm curious, on the writer front of it, were you kind of mentioned notes and stuff? Were you also like doing some script changes on the day, like
For sure,
and giving lines to people?
For
and
sure, there was a lot of that. In fact, that was a lot of what I was doing in pre-pro and then even in production. Because there's so many different things. There would be a location that would fall through that
Right.
Suddenly like the fence that they're taking all their stuff to and selling it to that
Right.
Michael Shannon plays. It was originally like he was like a mechanic and there was like a shop and stuff, like all that had to go. We couldn't find the shop they were looking for, so we found a warehouse, and now he owns a warehouse, and so just all these little details change
Sure.
the script. We got an investment halfway through, but they were insisting that this person have a scene in the film, and so you're kind of writing a new scene for a person
Right.
that
trying to fit that to the narrative beats of it all.
yeah.
make sure
You
it
know,
flows.
it's encouraging though, because that's the same stuff that happens on like your freshman level student films. Right? You're like, great, I'm gonna put him in a freezer, and you're like, I don't have a walk-in freezer, so I guess it's a closet. You know what I mean? Like it's
exactly.
you know,
It's the same.
So
And-
you're learning good skills even at the freshman level.
yeah,
right?
it's it doesn't change even at the level we were working at. It was
Yeah.
a lot of that.
When it's
Sure.
much more stressful than the level you're working at, because it's literal money that's burning.
Yeah,
When things fall through, or if you lose a day of shooting because of something. I mean, that's got to be stressful.
There was one scene too that I actually kind of enjoyed because I remember I was sitting in my hotel room. We had Michael Shannon for 2 days.
I want to ask how many days. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 2 very long days, and because he's very expensive.
Yeah,
obviously.
it makes a lot of sense.
And
Yeah.
and I remember I was sitting on. He came in on. So I think we shot at him on like a Monday and a Tuesday. So I was sitting in my hotel room on a Sunday night. And and Michael's already in town. Seth comes in and says, "So Michael Shannon is friends with Jacob Alexander,
Okay.
who plays one of the guys in the group, Chandler,
Right.
and they have the same manager, and that's kind of how Jacob got attached to the film. But they're friends, and Seth was like, "Hey, I think I heard a rumor that Michael might be willing to give us a little bit more time if he and Jacob had a scene together."
Ooh.
And I was like, "Okay."
You heard a rumor.
Yeah,
let's
how does
see.
that
yeah,
happen?
right. Well, that's when the manager nudges.
And we didn't have anything. They never interact in the film,
Right,
these two
yeah.
characters. So I looked at the script and I was like, okay, well, there's a scene here where nothing really happens. It's just kind of a bridge scene where you just see the guys dropping stuff off. I could work out a little scenario where they start engaging with each other a little bit. And so I just sat down that night, in like an hour and just banged out this quick scene of, and it's the scene in the film. If you've seen the film, it's the scene in the film where shortly after they've kind of taken matters in their own hands and they've hit up the this big ballroom scene and there's this big montage. As we're coming out of that montage, we have this sequence where Jack, who's played by Gillis Geary, who I thought was a great find. We really enjoyed working with him. Sort of instigates this little conflict between Jacob's character and Mike's character. And it was probably the most fun scene to watch Mike shoot.
Oh, wow.
And I wrote it in an hour the night before.
Isn't that incredible?
And it was so much fun because Mike didn't give us more time. We didn't get him for another day. I don't know where that came from.
If you give you more time, but you're also shooting more
But
material.
we still shot the scene.
Yeah.
So we just added to our day.
Yeah.
It didn't do anything, but it did make for a fun scene.
Time for the scenes you really want.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that's cool that you got this little extra thing, and I'm sure he goes, Michael Shannon's great the whole time, but he probably really appreciated it and just enjoyed it and had fun, even more fun than he was having, that sort of thing.
He was great to watch, and particularly in that scene, he was ad-libbing and it was just great. It was fun. I could, the crew kind of enjoyed watching him do that scene. So it was just one of those happy little moments where it's like, okay, this made the day harder, but I'm glad we did it.
That's awesome.
It's a better scene.
That's a cool little story.
So what were your days like? Like 14-ish, 15-ish?
Yeah, usually.
Did you try to keep everything on 12 for like cast and crew for pay reasons?
Yeah.
Or did you like...
Well, I lose track of time. I don't, but I
Especially on
was
set.
definitely aware of, the producers behind us, like telling us that we were running out of time. When you're used to student films, it's, you go until everyone's tired or done,
Yeah, you may piss some people off. But,
But yeah, so what? Leave if you want to, but we're going to keep shooting. Not on a film, not on a professional set. It doesn't work like at all. And they're telling it. It's kind of hard when the producers are in your ear, like, okay, this is now costing us like twice as much.
You
to
take
shoot
a
this.
second, third lunch or whatever.
Yeah.
5.5 hours,
Yeah.
all that good stuff.
it's kind of, it's something that I've realized just kind of watching director careers and like the industry the past few years of like, man, those producers, the people that really make movies, they only care about the money.
Yeah.
Like that's what they're looking at. They're just like, all they see is numbers in the world.
Well, one thing I think is really cool though is, all three of us, we've been on these short film, these thesis films or whatever over the years, and I feel like we've been conditioned to run really fast, shoot as much as we possibly can, and of course try to capture quality in these long days. And I think that really preps you for especially that indie world. And then and once you get beyond that point, I think the big money probably even more so appreciates the speed and the first people who have been like, not pampered, maybe it's a bad word, but someone who's maybe didn't have to do so much indie kind of stuff. They went straight from whatever to the big leagues.
Well, and too, there's plenty of examples of directors who have had a great first outing that the movie was a critical darling and it lost a lot of money and they've barely been in work since. That's a common story because of course maybe it got nominated for an Oscar, but they didn't make money.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. And it's one of those interesting kinks. It's like, as an artist, as a creative, I hate that. As like, you know what I mean? It's like, no, that goes against the essence of creating art. But at the same time, you got to deal with it. I mean, if you want to make movies, it's reality.
I remember this was several years ago. I was at Sundance, and we were actually trying to promote the film. But we were in like some party. And we were all just kind of trying to go out and network. At the time, I was working on a Western.
Okay.
I had a Western screenplay I was kind of developing. I've kind of since dropped that one, but I thought this guy, random producer, some guy I didn't even know. Sure. I'm talking to him, and he asked me what I'm working on. I'm telling him, I got a Western, and the guy almost attacked me. And he's like, why are you making a Western? And I'm just like, because I like Westerns. And I like the assassination of Jesse James, and that made it even worse. He got even madder.
Yeah.
Because he was like, that movie lost money. And I was like, okay.
It's like, clearly you're not the producer
No,
for
I
this
mean,
project.
it's it's one of those things that like, I mean, I've been working on a feature doc for about a year now, and I'm working with, I mean, we're all local people, but the main producer in our group, that's the way he sees everything. And it's good for me because it makes me realize, I'm like, oh yeah, if I'm writing a movie, I really need to think about that if I want to get it made. I mean, I mean, of course, you could write the best goddamn Western ever and it's going to get made and make money.
Yeah.
But in terms of a studio exec's perspective, they're seeing dying genre.
Yeah.
And especially nowadays, if you're thinking how, what is the future of indie films at the box office in general?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a different world, but it's like you have to have those people on your team, but at the same time, it's like, there's clash there in just terms of the way the creatives see the world versus the producers and the money crunchers.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a few things I just want to ask just because of my own curiosity. How many people were like on set on the day?
Oh God, I don't know. I mean, it was 50 something, maybe.
50 minutes, and that spread across from costuming to grips,
Well,
lighting.
on set, I don't know. I wouldn't say. Oh, it's 50
I guess I'm just
people
trying
on set
to
at a
extrapolate
time.
my brain.
I guess you'll probably had a home base where there was a lot of people.
A lot of people on home base.
Yeah.
We had, there were a lot of people I wouldn't even see because there was people in the costuming, there's people in, catering and everything else, and then there was all the people back at the main production office.
Right.
So yeah, probably something like that. I don't know. I'm probably way off. I can't count.
Gotcha. What'd you guys? Again, I'm just curious. What'd you guys shoot on? What was the?
We
camera?
shot on the Arri Alexa LF.
Gotcha.
That was fun. That was
Yeah.
an enormous camera.
It's a big rig.
Yeah, it's huge. We couldn't even shoot, we had car scenes and stuff like that we had to figure out new ways to shoot it than what we thought because the camera didn't fit into the back seat. It's like, oh, okay.
There was there's a lot of houses in this movie for obvious reasons, right? So, A, where'd you find all these houses and who let you shoot in them? And
Right.
then B, maybe B and C. Did you have fun destroying all this stuff? And then also, how did they feel about you destroying stuff inside their house?
It was a mix of several houses in the Salt Lake area and sets. We did have enough money to build a few, two main kind of sets. And so whenever you see them spray painting on the walls and really, really trashing up stuff, that's a set. But there were a lot of stuff that we did do in those houses.
There's some stuff I'm assuming breakaway glass, of course.
Yeah,
all these things, and they're doing it so well, and I always think even breakaway glass to me feels kind of scary, just for me personally, just the look of it. And these actors are just killing it.
It was scary, and it was scary for us too, and it was scary for the crew because it was very hard to kind of figure out how to keep it safe for everyone because even breakaway glass can be dangerous.
Sure.
And
there's a lot of things that can be dangerous. Depends on how you use them.
That's true.
And there was even things like there was a scene where we have Haley smashing this cabinet, and you can see we shot it slow motion. You see in the air all these particles, and you're like, oh wow, okay, yeah, that's dangerous too.
You could get in the eye. Yeah, exactly.
A lot of that stuff, the breakaway stuff, was shot on locations, and we just explained to people what we were doing, explained to them that it was breakaway stuff. We tried to be very careful to only shoot that kind of stuff in places where we were, certain there wouldn't be any accidents, nothing would get scuffed up or scraped up or like that.
One thing I of course I resonated with, just my generation and school and everything else. When I was watching it, I was like, yeah, fuck everyone, because student debt and everything else. So of course that was influenced into the script making. Can you comment a little bit on the themes of the movie a little bit and just kind of where that come from, of course? Yeah,
it kind of came in, it kind of just evolved over time. I think that initially, Seth was just kind of loved the idea of these vandals just breaking into people's houses. And eventually it's kind of like, okay, well, we got to tie this to something. There's got to be a reason that they're doing it that feels like it's a bigger deal for them. And so, yeah, we just kind of eventually started incorporating this idea of these guys having this sort of beef with the way the system had treated them.
Right. And to me, it kind of felt like, they maybe had this beef with this system, but also that might have been almost an excuse as well. Totally.
And that's something that's absolutely true. And, it's something that, a lot of the critics missed,
Really?
It's like, it does eventually, you do eventually see that these guys are total hypocrites in what they're doing. They're not, they're
not Robin
making
Hoods.
this excuse. Exactly.
Yeah.
And, they're really just, in a sense, echoing the corruption that they're, trying to fight against.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So yeah, that was kind of my take on it. Anyway.
Yeah. That's cool. No, I was watching it and I was just kind of getting a little ramped up watching it because I was like, I have a student dad, of course. You say, film and everything. I was like, and I knew you, and I was like, I was like, we come from both UCA, and I was like, definitely some leakage there. I knew that happened.
I've got a question, just as, and then maybe if you have some more like production questions, mine more story.
I was gonna get
like post production.
I was gonna get into post production next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same way.
There we go.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
So what was the post production like for you in particular? Like, how often were you in the editing room, or were you just like kind of reviewing cuts and giving notes to add to Seth's notes? I mean, like what did that look like?
It was a little bit of both of that. So
I guess it was edited in Los Angeles.
It was both. It was edited in Chicago, and then some more editing done in LA.
Does Seth currently live in Chicago?
He does.
Okay.
He does. And so he had an editor lined up in Chicago, and he worked with him for a little bit. I flew down to Chicago, like, I want to say 3 times. I went down there for like a week at a time, just sit in the edit room, go through the whole film.
Sure.
And we did it again. And then we came back to Chicago to do some pickup shoots and also more editing.
Sure.
And around that time, that editor had to go to another project. So we transitioned to an editor in LA. Now, I never went to LA. I never met that editor. But around that time, that's when COVID hit and things kind of started slowing down. But I was pretty involved in all the creative decisions there. If I wasn't in the edit room, Seth was always sending me the cuts and getting my notes. Same with the sound design, the music. We were on Zoom meetings with the composer, all the time, once a week, every week for weeks.
Now, as someone that does primarily, a lot of my career's been editing, what was it like working with a, quote unquote professional editor? What was it like trying to, because I'm even finding in my, in this past project I've been working on, just the biggest thing that's important is me and the producer being on the same wavelength, because he may be saying something, and if we're not communicating at a proper level, I'm going to do something else because I think that's what he said. Yeah. And then we're butting heads or something like that. So, like, what was that process like?
It was pretty casual. The editor that I mostly worked with was Dean Gonzalez, and
in Chicago. This is Chicago.
In Chicago, and it was very casual. Laid back. He was a really cool guy, easygoing guy, and if there was ever any kind of like miscommunication about what we were actually trying to do, you just get around to it. Eventually, you figure it out, and he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I see what you mean." But yeah, he was great. So it was a very nice, it was a really cool little studio, little facility there in Chicago too. So it was nice just kind of like sitting back on a couch and watching your film, come to life on that screen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So how long was the editing post-production process?
So they started as soon as we wrapped.
Sure.
We wrapped like in beginning of September, and it went all the way up until March, I think. Like I said, COVID slowed things down. So
good 6-7 months.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, that's what you brought up COVID. I was going to ask. I mean, you guys dodged a bullet shooting like right beforehand.
Yeah, if it had gotten delayed anymore, that would have been hard. I'm sure.
And I guess big thing. I guess more curious about distribution, that kind of thing. How did that, if you don't mind me telling that kind of thing, how did that kind of change your guys' distribution plan, and did that change the distribution plan?
I think so. I mean, I wasn't really involved in a lot of that stuff, but I know that, we initially meant for the film to be done in May, and we were going to premiere it at a festival and shop it around from there. Of course, none of that happened.
So y'all didn't have distribution at the time?
Sort of.
Right.
We had like different kinds of.
Yeah, it's all.
Yeah, I don't know how it all works. I just know that's like, we had Saban Films that was like attached to the film, but we were also free to shop it around if we didn't find a better deal, that kind of deal.
Interesting.
But yeah, we don't, I don't know how things would have turned out differently. I know that they were talking about releasing it in February, possibly.
I would assume y'all at least wouldn't have done VOD simultaneously.
Yeah, I don't think we would have
You
it.
mean 2021 February, is that what we're saying? Or
Yeah.
To try to get in theaters still.
Well, we wanted to. They were talking about trying to premiere it at maybe Sundance or something like that.
Yeah.
But of course, none of that happened, and it was becoming increasingly clear that even Sundance 2021 wasn't going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
And so they were like, okay, well, let's just put it out. Let's just go ahead and release it.
Well, I guess every day it's not releasing on time, and you're losing money because it's just setting.
Yeah.
Just an investment that's sitting there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm sure, as a creative, I mean, if the movie's done, you're ready for people to see it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you didn't want to wait any longer.
I didn't. I would have liked a little bit more word of mouth build up before the release.
Mm-hmm.
It would have. I felt like it would have helped a little bit. Otherwise you're just dropping this movie, this indie film, out into the world.
Yeah.
Against every other film that's coming out.
Which luckily is very few at this point. But at the same time, it's that back and forth.
Well, we opened against Freaky and I don't know what else, some Kevin Costner film, and
yeah,
it's
like
Kevin
Katie.
Costner. Oh no, you're right. I saw the trailer for that dumbass looking Kevin.
Yeah.
Costner. It looks like Taken, but with country parents. That's exactly.
Hey, there's an audience, I promise.
No,
you.
I was like, that movie's gonna kill in Arkansas.
That
Because
Yellowstone.
it's literally
audience.
like a cowboy killing his daughter's abusive husband. Like that's the plot.
Oh, it's
the most like
write a check, baby.
testosterone. Oh yeah.
But I remember sitting there last weekend, and I told Kay, I'm gonna watch Echo Boomers, and I just turned on my Apple TV, and it was the first. On the front page.
I know we were number 6 on iTunes. I think I saw that we were number 2 on Fandango.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that was pretty exciting.
Yeah,
It's really cool. I mean, there's eyes seeing it, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And again, I think what Daniel was saying is that yes, there's what you said. There's a lot of things coming out, but at the same time, we're kind of like almost being starved on the movie front. Maybe not so much.
Yeah.
Television's gotten lucky where there's still things are coming out still that were shot like a year ago, but on the movie front, we kind of don't have a whole lot. I mean,
well, if COVID wasn't happening, theoretically, if you were opening out, you'd be opening against James Bond.
Yeah.
So
I would prefer not to open against James Bond.
yeah, I
personally.
mean, and also
if any of my films,
even to like look at the future here. I mean, they just announced yesterday that Warner Brothers is releasing Wonder Woman 1984.
Yeah,
day in,
straight
day
to
out
HBO.
on December 25th.
and it's true. I mean, like, this is a bigger conversation, but the think pieces that are saying, oh yeah, the industry's changing, and I mean, I've seen people say like Warner Brothers putting Wonder Woman there is like will be talked about in history books of cinema forever. Like they think it's that big of a landmark change for cinema as an industry and as how people consume it and everything. I think I don't know if we can confidently say that yet, but I think potentially, yeah. I mean, if in 5 years, theaters are like kind of a niche boutique experience where you're mostly either getting Nolan and Tarantino films or classics that people still come and watch and stuff like that. I mean, maybe you could, but it is, and I know I'm sure as an indie filmmaker looking to continue being an indie writer and filmmaker, wanting to keep going and not just be done with this, at this film, it's kind of an uneasy, like you've made a film, you've done what millions of people just dream of doing, and how are you feeling about what's next, or what do you even see as far as like opportunities or how things are going and moving?
In terms of like
just what's next, for you in your career, like what do you want to do next? Like,
well, I really want to direct. That's my big thing. I love writing and I want to keep writing, but directing is really my biggest goal. And I've got a couple of projects that I've been working on, some before Echo even happened. The film that I mentioned earlier that I was trying to get off the ground here. That's still out there in development purgatory, I suppose. I think it could happen. We discussed adapting it into a series potentially, but ultimately, I think that's just so big for a first time. Even now, with a writing credit, that's still not enough to warrant getting me directing something like that.
Right.
So I've shifted my attention to trying to get some more micro budget films off the ground.
Cool.
Seth has always been very adamant that I've helped him so much with Echo that he wants to help me out. So I sent him a little script I wrote recently that I was like, look, no Echo budgets, just like, like $100K kind of, small film. And he's like, yeah, we can get that. We can definitely get that, And so he's pulling his strings. We're trying to get something off the ground that we would hope to shoot sometime next spring.
Where are you planning on going back to Chicago? Do you want to shoot here in Arkansas?
Yeah, it's going to have to be in Chicago because that's probably where the money's going to come from.
Where's all Seth's connections are.
Yeah, which is, that's kind of how it works. I'd love to make a film in Arkansas. I want to make films in Arkansas. Right. But I got to find the money in Arkansas for that to happen, hopefully someday, that'll be the case.
Yeah.
No, that sounds.
I mean, we're hoping to make that the case someday too. I mean, that's kind of what our short term goal is we've got some ideas and some scripts we've been working on, and it's like it's in that range too. You're like, I mean, realistically, we could make this on $20K or something like that.
Totally.
We could really go indie on this shit, and use the entire budget for like one C-level actor for that day, or whatever, to get the notoriety attached to it.
Yeah.
It's a balance.
It is difficult. I mean, I'm kind of aware of. Well, the group that I'm a part of doing the documentary is one of the only groups. I mean, they're producing right now a $20,000 feature. It's a foreign language feature that they're shooting right now in Little Rock. But other than that, I mean, there's just not a lot going on in the state.
Yeah,
it's hard to find the money. It's hard to find people that know how to raise the money.
Yeah,
it's just but it is there. But it's just hard to find.
That's it, and that's the key. It really is, and I see this every time. Anytime like Jeff Nichols is doing a conference or something here in Arkansas, I always go to. There's always somebody in the audience who wants to ask him like, "Is your next movie going to be in Arkansas?" And I see the look on his face, and I get it because he's probably just like, "Guys, please stop. Please stop bugging me about that because you can't when I dropped the production of Chop here in Arkansas." And gave it to this buddy of mine, Brandon, who started taking it around to like people who could actually get the thing funded for what it needed to be funded for. Suddenly I'm in an office in LA with an actual movie exec, and they're like, "Oh, we love the script. It's great. We love the southern vibe of it. We think that it'd be great shot in Georgia." And
exactly. Atlanta or New Orleans.
Right, exactly. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, that's cool, but also I'm from Arkansas, and it would mean a lot to me to shoot this in my home state. And they just kind of look at you like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we'll look into that."
Yeah, call us when tax breaks happen.
Exactly. Yeah. They don't care. They don't care about Arkansas. That doesn't mean anything to them. And what are you going to do? These are people that want to finance your film. This is like one chance that you have. Yeah. You're not going to die on that hill. You're not going to be like, "No, it's going to be shot in Arkansas," or not at all.
Right.
So that's just the way it is. And I feel Jeff's pain. I know what you want to bring a movie to Arkansas. We want to see Arkansas get film, but it's got to come from the state.
It's got to come from internal.
It's got to come from a lot of different things.
You can't. It's going to be tough to find people out of state willing to give money to make a movie in state, but there are people in state that will give money to make a movie in state because they're motivated. They want to see. They're Arkansas biased as well, so they want to see good things for the state. It is just that you got to find them. You got to convince. I mean, they're hard to find. I mean, I'm sure it may be easier in Northwest Arkansas where you got the Waltons and things like that. But especially in Central Arkansas, where there's less of a centralized even film community. We don't have a Rock Hill or even kind of a central studio that everyone uses. It's a bit more all over the place.
I guess to kind of get closer to wrap things up, real quick, through your experience of all this, what's one thing you could tell our listeners? And again, I really feel like our listeners primarily will be people in Arkansas and people in the film community, like our colleagues and stuff like that. Through your experience, what would be the one
5 quick tips to be rich tomorrow?
Yeah.
How to get a screenplay?
I wish I
had
that.
How to write a feature tonight.
You can tell me that privately, and then we'll save that for it.
That's right.
But no, tell our listeners, again, colleagues, friends, other filmmakers around us, what did you learn from this experience? And I know that's a big, large question, and it's more nuanced than that too. But what did you learn from this experience? And is there a path to getting your film made? You know what I'm saying? Is that possible?
Should we give up hope yet?
Should we give up hope?
No. I think the thing that I always think about is, they say it's all about who you know, and that's absolutely true. I think the trick there is to not interpret that as a challenge, but just as a fact. It doesn't one way I've heard a screenwriter put it is it could be who you know laterally.
Right.
It's about, your friends. It's about this community getting together and making films. I knew Seth through Arkansas, and Seth's not anybody. Seth's younger than me. He's not even like a big deal, but he had the tenacity to go out and, meet people in Chicago where there's more money and made more connections through college. And, I stayed in touch with him. And so I just kind of rode that wave. I think that, but I mean, ultimately it was just a matter of just, kind of staying connected to, like I said, I had a couple of projects that I was going, that I had going on. This one was the one that developed legs. So I followed it. And I think that's the thing, just have a lot of irons in the fire, write scripts and, stay involved in this community and try to make films together. Eventually you're going to find somebody who knows somebody who's like here, and then that person's going to know somebody that's here, and you're going to kind of climb those steps until you get to the person that can actually give your movie credibility. And I think that's really all it's about. It's even right now, look, nothing's really changed in my life yet.
Right.
Sure. I'm still, I'm not even like, I'm still struggling myself.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to spill too much of my own personal financial information, but I'm right. I'm definitely not,
yeah, we get it.
Like doing great. I'm over here thinking like, okay, the movie came out. Now what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm, I was actually, Kevin Bernhardt is the, one of the other writers, on Echo. We brought him in for a polish, and he's WGA. So he actually got us, kind of like, I'm technically eligible for WGA now because we were, the company was, whatever you call it, signatory. But I can't afford the fee to actually join because it's really expensive.
Yeah.
But I was emailing Kevin just today, actually, just like, hey man, let me pick your brain. What do I do next? And he's like, you can start cold calling managers and agents, and you now actually have a better chance of them listening to you because you have a feature written.
Right.
But it's still the same game. It's still just a matter of like, okay, well, I'll start cold calling people then.
I think there's this idea of like, once you make the first one, then people are just going to start running up to you, handing you opportunities. Like,
not yet. It's been a week. We'll still see, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen that way.
Yeah. But I mean, that's something that the group I'm with now is like, we're trying to plan 5 projects back because if we're going to have a revenue stream, we can't be done with the first project. Be like, all right, it's time to start the second. Like the second project needs to be in post by the time we're releasing the first, and that kind of thing. It's difficult. I mean, it's a challenge, but at the same time, I think that's the way you hustle to make it.
Yeah, for sure.
And one thing I want to bring up too, and you'll never say this about yourself, but I think you're a talented person. I've seen your films at UCA and all that kind of stuff. I think Daniel's a talented person.
Aww.
And I think I'm talented too. And not to take away me thinking you're talented.
No.
That definitely puts it into perspective. If he thinks himself.
But I think another important thing is, yes, you've got to know these people, those connections, the community. But I also think that, and again, you won't say this about yourself, but you got to put the work in.
Yeah.
And you've got to, kind of hone your craft. And then when that time does come, when you become a director, and I've seen you direct, I've seen The Whispers, and again, I'll say this to you before, I'll say it again for everybody. I think it's one of the best, if not the best directed film at UCA.
Thank you.
In terms of shot composition, in terms of, just the feel of it. It doesn't feel like a student film to me. And I think that that's a huge part of that, is putting that work in and putting that work into your craft that eventually will pay off. And it is about who you know, but I think about if you know those people and you have something to show them, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
And it goes from work ethic to actual work to X, Y, and Z. But I just want to put that out there. No, I had a great time talking to you.
I had a great time.
Coming on, man.
Thank you for having me.
Both interesting and just a fun conversation.
Yeah, it's super fun. I was just sitting there and I was like, oh my God, like I know Jason. I can just ask him to be on this podcast. Like,
I'm sure a lot of our listeners will, because we do have a few that are, just like Johnny Brandon and people like him that are the filmmaker side that like it. And I know for a fact they'll be very interested to hear your story and how you made it and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I enjoyed being it. It's my first podcast, so it was like I've been wanting to do a podcast for so long. You know,
Right.
I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a
Yeah.
lot, like directors, the DGA podcast, and all that stuff. And I'm like, someday I'm gonna get to do a podcast and share my
It's coming.
experiences.
Little did you know, it would
Yeah.
be one with 20 subscribers on YouTube.
We
Perfect.
started actually, I think, almost exactly a year ago,
It
and
was
we did it for
literally
fun.
We
And
made the first one after the first episode of The Mandalorian. That started like, let's start a podcast just reviewing The Mandalorian because we just want to.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
an hour.
and we
Cool.
just enjoy.
And now our
it.
career's made, and I'll never
That's
be
it.
hungry.
Yeah, we have
And
hot shots
I'm
on
rich.
No,
I'm
we
very
just
rich.
we do it for fun, and we think our ultimate goal with it down the line. We have other content coming out we haven't put out yet for the channel. That's not podcast
Content.
stuff. Content. I know content.
Content.
But we're doing it because we think it's just a good. We think it looks good and all this kind of stuff, and that it's just it's fun. It's a resume builder, possibly.
It's just fun.
It's just
that's
fun.
one of the biggest ones. Just,
Yeah, and I get to communicate with people, and I haven't seen in a long time or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
and it's just we enjoy it. But Daniel, how can our listeners write into us?
They can write into bit.ly/241mail. There, you can leave any questions you have for us. If you have questions for Jason, maybe Donald will pass it on. Probably not. Sorry. But if you have any other questions about anything else movie related, or if you've got a great idea you want me to steal, let us know. bit.ly/241.
And of course, if you want to listen to the podcast, it's on all podcast services. If you want more, Podcast 241, podcast241.com. And we always recommend people to go into the YouTube channel, subscribing, hit that like button. Please drop us a comment below or write into our Bitly. It's the best way to watch the content, and we just think this is the most fun. Also, it's going to help us out.
Yeah, it'd be real neat of you. Real neat.
Yeah. How can our listeners find you or follow you?
Well, that's a good question. I keep telling myself that I'm going to up my social media game
Just
someday.
tell them your IMDb page.
But,
just tell them your IMDb
What's your
page.
phone number?
Come
Your
on.
bank account?
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm on Twitter as I think Jason Miller Film at Twitter, and then I'm on Instagram. It might be the same thing. I don't know.
We'll look
but
into it, and we'll definitely.
You
Yeah.
share it in there.
Have you gotten your blue check marks yet?
I have not.
Oh.
I'm not worth that
What
yet.
the hell? What a horrible transaction this whole movie
Right.
was.
Nobody cares. I've got less.
That would
than
have been in my
100
contract. I'd be like, yes, I want money, but I want a goddamn blue check mark.
Right. Right now, I have less than 100 followers on Twitter. No one follows me. But, I keep saying, well, I'm not going to post anything because nobody sees it. I keep waiting to get followers before I start posting.
Chicken
I
head.
want to tell you right now, it's a vicious cycle.
Tell you what,
Yeah.
I know a number. You can call them, they'll get you 10,000 followers real quick, man. Don't even worry about it. Don't even think about it. Just be
All from
bam.
yeah,
Just a
it's
bunch of bots from Russia.
Well, anyway, thank you again, Jason, for stopping by.
Yeah, it was
And
really fun.
It was
Cool.
And
Thank you.
As always, my name is Donovan Thompson,
I'm Daniel Wingfield.
I'm Jason Miller.
and we have spoken.